Cooking with spices can be daunting, but fear not, I'll walk you through everything you need to know in order to get started. I'll recommend the list of essential spices that every home cook should have and show you how to make your own spice powders. Stick around till the end and I'll teach you about buying and storing spices for maximum freshness. Let's get right to it. I have my most used spices laid out in front of me. From most used to least used, we have 12 spices here, whole and ground, and I'll walk you through each of them and tell you how I use them. Starting from the left to right, these two are bare necessities that you should absolutely have in your kitchen. These over here are the ones that are staples in my kitchen and I would recommend purchasing. These ones are more specialized in their usage and I would recommend buying them when you get into advanced recipes. The first spice we're going to start with is black pepper. Now this is something I'm sure all of you have at home. Black pepper lends this nice spiciness to any dish without overwhelming the rest of the flavors. I always buy whole black peppercorns and then grind them fresh in my pepper mill for the maximum flavor. I use black pepper in almost all savory dishes and sometimes in sweet dishes like chutneys where it adds a nice kick that balances the sweetness. If you learn one thing from this video, buy whole peppercorns and grind them in your pepper mill every time you use them. The next spice I have here is red chili. These are whole red chilies and this specific variety adds more color than heat and you can get a variety of different types of chili based on what your preferences are. I use this whole at the beginning of the cooking process in all sorts of Indian dishes and I also have this in a powdered form and I use this in the middle of the cooking process to add a lovely red color and a little bit of heat to the dish. Sometimes I will break these whole red chilies up into smaller pieces and use it in a stir-fry dish. It goes really well with orange chicken. The next spice I have here is turmeric. This is a staple in Indian cuisine and it adds this beautiful golden yellow color as well as this earthy flavor to any dish. I use this to add flavor and color to curries as well as cook vegetable side dishes where this is one of the two main spices. Turmeric also has a lot of different health benefits and one of the things I grew up with was turmeric stirred into warm milk for those days when I was feeling under the weather. The next spice I have is cumin. Now this adds a lovely earthiness as well as a slight spiciness to any dish. This is not only used in Indian cuisine, but also used in Latin American cuisine. So what I usually use cumin for is cooking vegetable side dishes or any sorts of curries. Sometimes cumin is also a component in chutneys like mango chutneys and it adds a nice contrast to the sweet and tart flavor of seasonal mangoes. The next spice I have is coriander. Now this is perfect for flavoring stocks and broths. I often use it in Indian cooking, of course. It can also be ground up into a powder and used in Latin American cuisine as well. Coriander goes really well with lamb, so you see it used in a lot of different lamb or other meat dishes. Coriander has a lovely herbaceous flavor. Both cumin and coriander have this earthy quality to them, but coriander is a lot more herbaceous or grassier in nature. In case you didn't know, coriander and cilantro are different parts of the same plant, and if you planted the seed, you would be able to grow a cilantro plant. The next spice I most commonly use is garam masala. Now, garam masala is a blend of a few different spices that are dry roasted and then ground up into a powder. The recipe for this differs by every household in India, and everyone has their own way of adding the flavors that they really like. For my garam masala, I tend to use cardamom, cinnamon, and cloves as the main components, and depending on the dish, I will add other elements if needed. Garam masala can be used in all sorts of Indian dishes. Sometimes I will also use garam masala on my roast potatoes for a delicious fragrant flavor. You can also use a little bit of garam masala to flavor your tomato sauce and take it to the next level. The next spice on the list is cardamom. This is one of my favorite spices because it's so versatile and it smells delicious. I always buy cardamom whole, and there are two kinds of cardamom: black cardamom and green cardamom. Green cardamom is the one that I use the most. I use green cardamom in savory dishes like biryani, for instance, but green cardamom works really well in sweet dishes like gulab jamun or rice puddings. Green cardamom is also an excellent flavoring to add to your chai. Green cardamom has this beautiful floral flavor that's so peculiar to cardamom. Cardamom has this beautiful floral fragrance that flavors any dish you use it in. It's bright, earthy, and floral at the same time, which really adds a lovely complex flavor to any dish that you use it in. The next spice we're going to talk about is cinnamon. Now, cinnamon has a spicy and sweet flavor, and it is so versatile. Cinnamon is a mainstay if you like sweet breakfasts. Cinnamon is also a component of the mole sauce. Cinnamon is an element that's used in Chinese cooking and is a part of Chinese five-spice powder. And of course, I use cinnamon when I'm making these beautiful warm braised dishes in Indian cuisine like nihari. The next spice on the list is clove. Now, cloves are another versatile spice that can be used in sweet and savory dishes. They're pretty pungent on the nose, and they have a sweet and spicy flavor that adds a kick to any savory or sweet dish that you use it in. I use cloves as a component of garam masala, as well as at the beginning of the cooking process to flavor the oil when I'm cooking any kind of Indian curry. Cloves are also great with desserts, and there are so many Indian desserts that are flavored with clove. Clove is also a component of Chinese five-spice powder, and it adds this beautiful depth of flavor when you use it with soy sauce. The next spice we're talking about is nutmeg. Nutmeg is another one of those spices that can be used in sweet and savory dishes. Nutmeg is a key component in bechamel sauce as well as in eggnog. Nutmeg also works really well in hot chocolate, so give that a try and let me know what you think. I use nutmeg as a part of my biryani masala, where I use it to flavor the meat as well as the rice. I've cooked biryani on this channel before, and I'll link the video for you down below. The next spice we're talking about is more expensive than gold. It's saffron. Saffron is another one of those spices that's incredibly versatile. It has this intense floral aroma and a slight sweetness to it that works well in sweet and savory dishes. I use saffron in biryanis, but saffron is also a major component of Italian and Spanish cuisine, and it's used in risottos and paellas. Saffron is a game changer in desserts, and it is a key component in gulab jamun as well as rice puddings, and works really well in the form of an ice cream. The last spice on my list is star anise. Star anise has this very peculiar licorice flavor that lends itself well to mainly savory dishes. I've seen it used in sweet dishes, but I'm not a fan of licorice, so so I tend to stay away from those. Star anise is a component of Chinese spice powder as well as used in braises with soy sauce. I also use star anise as a component of some of my garam masalas when I'm cooking seafood or chicken. If you're just starting out, star anise isn't something that you absolutely need in your pantry. Once you reach an intermediate level, I would recommend acquiring this spice. I'm a big proponent of making your own spice powders because that way you can extract the maximum flavor out of each of these spices. The other factor is that you also save money by buying whole spices, and your spices last a lot longer in storage than powdered spices. Powdered spices last about 6 months or so, but you can keep whole spices in airtight containers for over a year. Let's make some chili flakes. This is incredibly simple. I have a pan heating up here and I have some whole red chilies that I'm going to add into this dry pan. I'm going to toast these for a little bit till they release their aroma. And you can see that the red chilies are already getting glossier and a bit more puffed up. These chilies smell nice and fragrant now, and they've got these dark spots, so I'm going to remove them from the pan. We're going to let this cool completely before we crush them up. Let's crush these chilies. Wow, that was some hard work, but it was worth it. You can always use a coffee or spice grinder, so let's do that with the cumin. Let's dry roast the cumin. This is going to take a lot shorter amount of time than the red chili just because the cumin seeds are so tiny. Make sure that you take it off the heat the moment you smell the aroma of cumin. Smell the beautiful aroma of the cumin. So let's take these off the heat. You can see here the difference in color between the toasted cumin and the non-toasted cumin. Not only has this toasted cumin become richer in color, but also in fragrance because all of the aromatic oils from within the spice has been released due to the application of heat. Let's grind it up in our spice grinder. This is a spice grinder that I've had for 8 years or so, and I bought it off of Amazon for about $20. I want to get all of the spice powder out of the spice grinder. We now know the essential spices we need to purchase. We've learned how to make our own spice powders. So if you're liking this video so far, then please subscribe to my channel and share it with your friends and family. Now let's move on to buying and storing spices. I usually buy my spices when I'm on my annual trip to India. However, that's not always possible. So here are some of the other places I like to shop from. The first place is your local Asian or Indian grocery store. You can buy spices in bulk or in smaller quantities. Make sure to inspect the spice to ensure that it is not stale and hasn't been sitting around on the shelves for a long time. I'll show you the difference between stale and fresh spice in a minute. The other place I like to shop from is Amazon. I usually look out for small businesses, and the main reason for that is I know that they are buying and bagging these spices in small quantities, and so the freshness is guaranteed. The third place is your local grocery stores. You can get all of the common spices like black pepper, cumin, coriander, red chili at your local grocery store. The other place, and my favorite place to shop for spices, is this website called Diaspora, and I'll link it for you down below. They source their spices from small farms in India and the quality is impeccable. I like to buy my spices in small quantities and store them in airtight glass jars like this, and then this goes into a cupboard or my pantry. Make sure that the lid is airtight because that maintains the fragrance of the spices, and you want to keep it away from sunlight and store it in a cool and dry place to retain the freshness for as long as possible. Whole spices usually last about a year or so till they start losing their fragrance, and ground spices about 5 to 6 months. Let's look at this example. In case you're wondering, this is mace. It is essentially the same plant as the nutmeg. The nutmeg is the fruit and mace forms the covering of that fruit. So I had this batch lying around in my cupboard, and this is a newer batch that I bought last year on our trip to India, and you can see how the new batch is just a vibrant orange in color, and all of these mace flowers are whole, whereas if you look at the stale one, you can see that it's much grayer in color, and these flowers are breaking up into small pieces because it's a lot drier and brittle. When I smell them, this has a very faint mace smell, but it really doesn't smell like much. So if you were to add this to your dish, it would get lost. This one, even before I bring it up to my nose, I can smell the familiar aroma of mace, and it's pungent and vibrant, and I can tell even without looking at it that it's mace. So make sure you inspect your spices before you buy them and store them properly for long-lasting freshness. I hope this video was helpful in getting started on your spice journey. If you like this video, please let me know in the comments, and I'll create a part 2 with the rest of the spices in my pantry. If you love this video, you're going to love my other video on how to cook with spices, and I'll link it for you here.